What came first? The music or the misery? People worry about kids playing with guns or watching violent videos, that some sort of culture of violence will take them over. Nobody worries about kids listening to thousands, literally thousands of songs about heartbreak, rejection, pain, misery, and loss. Did I listen to pop music because I was miserable? Or was I miserable because I listened to pop music?
Here we go again.
We certainly are.
My name's Paul.
My name's Andy.
And this is the Unpenned Show, not live around the world, recorded on a Tuesday evening, the 15th of April 2014. Subscribers, are we worried about them?
No.
We keep losing them, don't we?
We do, yes.
We keep losing them. I can't understand how we're upsetting them, and I'm not in the slightest bit worried that we are.
No.
Because I don't want a world of yes, Paul, no, Paul, yes, Andy, yes. That's not going to work, is it?
No.
It's not. We've been doing that for far too long. The problem that we have is civil obedience.
Yeah.
The problem that we have is 99% of the world is doing as they're told.
Yes, they are.
They're doing as they're told. They're saying, I'm okay being a slave. Just pay me enough. Just pay me enough and I'm okay being a slave. I don't want to do any more than I have to. I'm not worried about any more than I need. As long as I've got enough, just give me enough and I'll be a slave.
Yeah. The key word there, give me. Though.
Yeah. I know gurus who we just want to go along to get along. We just want to have enough to get to the end and feel we've made a slight difference and a slight profit. Gurus say that. And I agree with them. But is it not the path to our destruction? Is that not the problem? That every change that's made, we just adjust accordingly? Is that not what the problem is? We just make do. We just change from steak to hamburgers, then from decent hamburgers to sausages, and then from sausages to soya. And that's it. We still feel it's enough. The road to poverty is now well along the way, isn't it?
It certainly is.
And two words that I use to describe how we've been caught and how we can't get out is bad education. That's what's brought us to this point. Now, the opening show clip was High Fidelity, okay, John Cusack film, High Fidelity. I always try and think of an opening show clip just to test your knowledge of the movies. Do you know the movie? If you haven't seen the movie, it's an interesting one. It has got a powerful message in a way that some movies have, but I liked it anyway. And the message at the front there was, quite simply, is it the music that makes us miserable? Well, is it? Is that how it started? Is it always full of failures and lost loves? And it is, isn't it? It's very, very little happy music out there, is there?
Yeah.
The happy music is the childish, the nursery rhyme type music, the Robbie Williams type rubbish. The take that, this, that, and the other. The other stuff's deep and dark and always meaningful, but very rarely happy. Very rarely happy, is it?
I know country and western's a bit like that. And my wife left me and the dog bit me, and my truck's broken down, and I have no money to repair it, and I need another string on my guitar.
But when we talk about all these media that have been surrounding us all this time, media is just the word medium, isn't it? Has it been a fortune-telling game? Because to me, all the media that we have access to is telling us our fortunes. It is clearly illuminating the future, should you wish to see it. Would you agree that is what's happening?
Yeah.
How old? Do you remember when we first started this conversation years ago now? About what we claim to be awake, which is just a personal judgment and statement. And I've realised that making personal judgment and statements about my own position is pointless. Because it's for others to decide. It is for others, isn't it? They'll decide who I am, because that's what they do. They're not all wearing wigs and superhero capes. But everybody I meet has got an opinion.
Yeah.
And give them 5 minutes of listening to somebody they've never met, and they'll have an opinion on that as well. So for me to try and say that I am is silly, because others will decide what I am by the show that I put on. So we'll leave that there, because everybody wants to be a judge, and everybody wants to be to have a slave of their own, don't they? Because my understanding really is that the reality we live in, which many call illusion, but we don't call it illusion anymore. We just call it reality. We understand it's reality. We understand that Big Brother is the reality, not the TV show. We understand I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here is reality, not a TV show. We see it for what it is. But why can't others? Why can't others? Why do we watch a film and look forward to what it has to teach us about where we're going wrong, how we could change, what tactics we could employ, and how things could be different if we understood what it was that the message was that we're being shown? Now, off air, before we started this evening, you talked to me about Hamlet.
I did, yeah.
Now, I felt completely at a loss because I've not seen it. I've not moved on to the Shakespeare side of learning, as it were.
No.
Tell me a bit about Hamlet, because you described it to me and I was like, well, that's just like the forerunner to every film that we watch.
Yes, it was. And I didn't read the book. I'm not interested in reading Shakespeare, never have been. But I was just at the weekend, we had the film Hamlet with Mel Gibson and Glenn Close in it, and I thought, I'm going to sit down and watch this. I had a little bit of time and thought, I'm going to kill some time. I'm going to find out what the elites tell us we should read or we should watch, and the very word watch. But I did the lazy way. I didn't read it. I watched it, and it was somebody's interpretation of the film. But basically, Hamlet is the son of a king, and he's led the sheltered life, and he's learned to act on or make people believe he's a little bit mad, and that's the way he gets to get away with things a little bit, and he gets away with spying on people that way, but they don't know he's spying on them. And that's how he learns.
This is how you got me lured in here.
That's what's going on. And it's the spying thing that got me as well, and the intrigue. And it's about the Dutch royal family. I didn't know it was about the Dutch royal family in medieval times, but it was. And it's the intrigue of the jealousy of the king's brother, and he ends up killing the king and marrying the king's wife, it's Hamlet's mother, and so there's a vengeance thing going on there as well. But it's the way he goes about the whole story. It's a 2 hour and 10-minute story, and but it's no different to.
It's just the old-fashioned version of a new-fashioned story.
Yes, that's it. Yes,
but these are things that, if we choose to learn, if we can see and hear, then we can call ourselves a seer.
Yeah,
because everything that I actually watch and listen and read is telling me exactly how things work. But I have to put a bit of thinking process in there. I have to realise it is all connected. How we feel, what we say, it's telling the truth to yourself, isn't it? Once you accept every decision you've ever made in your lifetime has been based on a favourable outcome for you. And then you have to move along and say, do you know, I think I have always based decisions like that and never worried about too much about what other people's lives are going to change because of my favourable outcome. In fact, if I actually succeed here and have more than those others that were playing, then I can call myself the winner. I can say that in this game I won, and because they chose to sit down with me and I won and they lost, then they have to accept the loss because I'm keeping the gain. Well, once you see that is life, that's how life is played all the time. We've talked about every conversation being nothing but a discussion. Okay,
Yeah.
a fight, a verbal boxing match for superiority, supremacy, control, and ultimately gain. It might appear to be a fair trade, but that's the art of a salesman. A salesman will tell you, if you'd come yesterday, you wouldn't have had the opportunity I've got to give you today, because you're the first person I've had to offer this to, and I don't expect to offer it to two, because I want you to listen why it is the day it's right for you to buy whatever it is I'm selling. Because what's happened today is that very car in front of me here that you've been looking at, that very car that you've been wandering round, that you don't think you can afford that, do you? Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make it so you can afford that car today, and I'm going to tell you why you can afford it. Because this morning we had the most terrible news. The buyer of that car, the reason why that car's in the showroom is because the buyer of that car has died. And they have paid a substantial deposit on that car, but they've died. And now the deposits on the new car are not returnable. And I don't expect to offer this to somebody after you, because that deposit that's been paid, I can put it down as a payment on behalf of your purchase. This will not be available tomorrow, and it certainly wasn't available yesterday, because that car is ready for delivery. So if you're thinking about buying a new car today, that car has got X £1,000 off for the amount of minutes it takes me to find somebody who recognises what a good deal that is. That's how a car was sold to me 10 years ago. That is how a car was sold to me 10 years ago. Was he telling the truth or was he fibbing? I don't know. But I bought the car. That was an example of how we really have to understand that we're all doing business with each other. We're all looking to gain. We're all looking to succeed. And the seed is, that sounds like a good idea. Mm. And once you meet somebody who is sucking the same seed as you are and trying to get it to flower and become fruitful, so you can suck to excess and get full on it, you can become successful. Once you find somebody who says, I've got an idea that I think might be popular, and I'm going to run it by you and see what you think. And you might think it's the best idea since slicing bread, but you're not going to give it that. Well, it's an interesting plan you have there. Now, the only reason they've told you, right, is not because they want to help you. It's because they need your help.
Yeah.
Right, they haven't told you to impress you. Right? It's a bit like Dragon's Den. They've turned up asking if you think it's a good idea, but they haven't asked. They want your opinion because they value it, but they also want your help, but they don't want to pay for it. Now, you know this. You know that they want your help, but they don't want to pay for it. So it sounds a good idea. Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. Oh, that's going to be expensive. You're going to need someone to help you with that. You see? So already you're buying into it. Mm-hmm. Now, who's selling who? Who's buying and selling who here? Are you negotiating the deals on which you'll come in on this deal? Or is he negotiating the way you're going to come in on this deal? Well, you're both doing the same thing.
You are, yeah.
It's Dragon's Den, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's just the game being played that you have to see that you're all playing with each other. But if you don't accept that, you'll not accept the way life works. You'll not accept that life is business. If you're still at the point of unity, community, we're all one and sharing, that's a lovely idea, but that really much goes out the window when you start school. When you're 1, 2, 3 and 4 years old, your parents tell you, share and share alike. Be nice to everybody. You get all that when you're 4, right? When you start school at 4.5, 5, you quickly learn. You quickly learn that those lessons don't stand you in good stead for what school's got to bring you. Because school is a fight for position. School is the first time you've experienced the race. The race is a jostle for position in what is the classification of the league of tables that you're going to be sat at. That's what it is. And within the first 2 or 3 years of school, you're already blinking aware of your classification. You're either up with the sporty gang, up with the smart gang, okay, up with the trendy gang, along with the bullies, or down with the rest. You pretty much found out, and you can move around those groups but you'll belong more to one of those groups than you will to the others. But you may well be allowed to move around. That's school. Now, if you're still, however old you are listening to this, if you're still on the unity community, all sharing as one, right? Think about it. You haven't really started the school of life yet. Not really. I know you want a world that is built on love and respect. We all do. And I'd love it to tell you that it's somewhere near. It's not coming, and it's not going to come, because you need to go to the school and take part in what is the playing of life. You've got to work out and get involved. You can't affect the outcome of anything that's called a game if you ain't playing. If you ain't playing, you're not playing. Now, we started this little... I went off on one there, didn't I? I always go off on one. But... Hamlet. Hamlet it was, wasn't it? And how the media is... to me, I will not be persuaded that the media is not actually trying to help us on one level. Now, for the sleeping, I realise that the sleeping, they see it as fiction, as harmless, as entertainment, and they just take it all in. I realise that they don't go any further in the decode. But for those that can go further, you really should be able to see further and understand further and hear further than this.
Yeah.
Everything that we have the ability to watch, see, hear, listen, whatever, is just somebody else's show, isn't it? It's just another show. This is just a little show. It's a little vocal show that we do because we choose to do it. We don't care at all if you listen or you don't. We don't care whether you subscribe or you leave. We put this on YouTube because it's there and we want to do it. Yes, we're interested in your opinions, but they'll have to be well-founded and have some sort of gravitas and depth for us to actually be interested in them.
Yeah.
Every time you open your mouth, every time you write something down, it says who you are. You may well be actually trying to character assassinate another. You may well trying to be disturb another's show. You may well trying to be ruin another's presentation. Why would you do that? Is it, and this is the most important point that I've been getting around to making, and I'm coming back to what Hamlet was doing, is it because you're jealous? Or is it because you're envious? Now, jealousy to some extent can be seen as a positive emotion, because jealousy means that you want the same as somebody else has, and you're really jealous of them having achieved it because you haven't yet. Now, envy's different. Envy is wanting to take something away from that person. You don't want them to have it. You want to have it. Now, jealousy and envy, those are the two things that I think Hamlet is, in essence, on what you've told me so far without seeing it. Yeah. You show people up for who they really are through theatre, through the stage. And the Greeks did this. And they invented satire. And the people didn't see it. They laughed and laughed and laughed, but they didn't see it for what it was. They saw it as satirical comedy that was there to entertain them and make them laugh. And because it was presented in a fictional presentation, they never saw it for the reality that it was. And maybe that's where it started. Maybe that's where the ability for us to criticise the control system grew.
Yeah.
Because before that time, there was no criticism allowed. Now, the internet has given us a real chance at connecting with people who understand what needs to be done, as opposed to those that don't.
Yeah.
You know, the lovely, fluffy ones. They're always going to be there, and these aren't nasty people, but they're not going to be where you need them, and they're not going to have what you need when you want them to do what needs to be done. If we want to change things, the first thing we have to do is change ourselves, and then we have to amass, okay, and this is just a personal thing, the courage, the strength and the ability to present what would be a challenge.
Yeah.
And slaves have to be broken, and if you're broke, and by that I mean financially bankrupt, you may well want to fight. You may well say you're going to fight. But the hand that feeds you will decide if you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to seeing Hamlet.
Yeah.
Because every media we have, I believe, is shouting, learn or die.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing that came across to me was how these so-called people that we look up to, the elites, as it were, are so entrapped that they can't do anything for themselves, really. We do everything for them when you look at it. And that came across to me in Hamlet, that he's the son of a dead king, and his uncle's the tyrant who's taken the throne by killing his father, and he's sent away on a ship to England to be murdered, and he works out that he's going to be murdered, and he turns the tables a little bit, and he's very cunning with this playing on the madness thing, and he uses it in his favour, and you can see how that works with the hierarchy and the system that it is, and of course it's based on the royals as well. It's based on a king and a queen and how they work. But he ends up he has to come back. He cannot survive on his own. He's in that system that entraps you into not being able to do anything other but to go back. He has to go back to the castle.
How many times have we said they are more enslaved than we are?
Yes, we have. Yeah,
I mean,
it is true that
we might be their bread, but they have to need us.
Yes,
KNEAD.
Yeah.
They have to let us rise and fall. They cannot keep pushing us down. They have to let us rise and fall because we are their bread.
Yeah.
They might have the ability, and they might have hidden all the knowledge that they need to maintain their position as kings and queens of the hill.
Mm-hmm.
But I still maintain they hate us because of our creativity and our freedoms.
Yes. Yeah,
I've said that right from the start.
For it. Yeah.
They hate us because we look at them. We look at them and they know and we know to some extent. We can survive without you, but you cannot survive without us.
No.
And when we perhaps just realise the gravity of that, that they are prepared to go to any lengths, no matter what it takes to maintain their position. And the word laughter and slaughter is closely connected in how they maintain the power.
Yeah.
Now we, and I don't say you and I, but we, can be accused of being part of the reason why people are so frightened of the invisible system that we always call they or them.
Yeah.
Because it is an invisible system called they or them. Nobody names them, but we all know they exist. Even to the most sleeping, they still know when they speak about a control system, it's called they. So, subconsciously, it is real. And as long as we continue, along with many others, to project how strong and how powerful and how successful it's been, and how unsuccessful we have been in challenging its control, how unsuccessful we have been in changing our destinies, how often we have failed. As long as we keep selling that, then we guarantee its continuing success.
We do.
Because we do not need them. Now, I am not in any sort of illusory Disneyland here. And let's just speak hypothetically. If we did get an opportunity to challenge the system and it stood down, let's make no mistake, what would replace it would be the same as what we have eventually. Because the challenge that we have and the level we can challenge at is political. Now, we know they are somebody else's puppets. So for all it might slow the system down, should we not get the right politicians in place that they choose, it might slow the system down, but it wouldn't end its actual control. Now, those that may be listening to us, and thank you for doing so, you listen to us on YouTube, my Facebook, your Facebook, and anything we talk about is on my Facebook page. This is on YouTube for our reference only, but you're very well welcome to listen to it, and if you want to comment, please feel absolutely free to do so. We may or may not reply, it depends how appropriate it is. If it's a critique, please make it one that we can use properly. If it's anything else, say what you want, it doesn't matter to me. I lost my train of thought there, what was I?
Me as well. We are on about replacing the hierarchy.
If we replace them, we would have to replace them with people we knew and trusted. But over time, would they change politics, or would the control system change them?
No,
well, we know that the government doesn't change. Only the puppetry show. Only the puppetry show changes. So let's not go down the line, so what would happen if we did that? Because the truth is, that's not the way it's going to work. That's not the way it's going to work. We are very much in what would be the second phase, I think, of a modern generation, or a modern revolution. And I say the second phase of a revolution because in my living lifetime, I know, even though I was very little and didn't take part of it from my pram, I know the 60s was very much the first phase of what we have as what we're going to call the technological revolution. That was very much the sex, drugs and rock and roll, and the media influence, the music, and you know, where did the drugs come from? Where did all these speakers come from? Where did the music come from? Where did the fields? Where did it all come from? Well, we have to accept at some point that it was controlled, engineered, manipulated. Of course it was. If you were in charge, if I was in charge, we would look to maintain our position. We would always have to have information, information from both camps. We'd have to know everything, because knowledge is power. Information and spying is all that we've... That's how powers are built. That's how empires are built. Knowing what the enemy's up to, leading them down the garden path and betraying them at the end. The 60s was maybe the first attempt at what we'll call a modern day revolution. But we didn't get much out of it, but we're aware of it. And to me, from 2001, we have what would be the second wave. We've got the second wave of that revolution. It's the same 60s revolution, just improved upon. And instead of us having to go to festivals and that sort of thing and becoming hippies, this is very much more in our own houses now. It's the same stories being told. It's the same challenges, the same critiques, the same problems are still here. They haven't gone away. A never-ending war, an unjust system, a war on the poor, a broken monetary system that's designed to bankrupt us all over time. Those things are still here. So nothing was changed by the 60s, and at the moment nothing's really been changed by what we're doing. And why don't we ask, why is it not changing? It's because to turn a ship around this big takes an awful long time. I actually think at this moment in time we are becoming more intelligent, but it's so darn slow. Look how long it takes them to change us. They say to convert one way of thinking to the exact opposite is 60 to 90 years.
Yes, 3 generations just about, isn't it?
Yes, 60 to 90 years to turn a country from one to another way of thinking. Well, maybe we have to accept that that's the time scale we're working in. And maybe instead, and I'm speaking to myself here, maybe instead of being so frustrated about the world, maybe just be grateful that you got to take a little part in it. You know, the future's coming. Technology is coming, and whether I say I don't like it or I do like it, it doesn't matter. It's not asking my permission. It's coming anyway, and it's coming because the consumers are buying into it. Sat round the world now, there'll be tens of thousands, perhaps even tens of millions of people, and they are sat thinking, how can they profit from doing business on the internet? They know the future is doing business on the internet, and they are sat thinking of what's the next big thing that I can bring to the internet that will make me rich. And there are tens of thousands of people sat in the world tonight doing just that. It's the new economy, and that's what we're going to be buying into.
Yeah.
There is no gun to my head, and I don't have to. The internet has given me access to many things, much of what I don't need. But the entertainment, the music, the literature, the speakers from around the world that I could never have heard before, the books I can get, I've never had this before. It is an absolute revelation for me, but I understand its position in my life. Okay, Google or the internet is just a place for answers. What it's got is answers. It doesn't have questions for me. I have to have the right question and then know where to look and understand what I'm listening to and decide if I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Because my truth belongs to me, and I get to say what I want at the time that I think I should be saying it, and it's my truth at that time, and it could change tomorrow. Discernment. I have all that available to me for the internet. It is an absolute genial machine, but I know the price I'm paying. I know the price I'm paying, and that is that I'm giving a lot of who I am away. I'm helping a world brain be developed. I'm helping a system of information to be put together. So slowly but surely, I have to go to the internet for my answers.
Yeah.
Because, like a little child sat in class doing his first exam, if he asks all around him for the answers, he'll do the exam. And let's say all the answers are correct, he'll feel just as smart as those around him. But he's not. He's not as smart at all. He's only smart if he can remember. But the internet doesn't require you to remember anything. That's where your memory is, because that's why the computers with the bigger memories are the more expensive. Because you're buying the memory, or you're replacing the memory that you're losing. Your memory has been transferred into there, and you're going to have nothing of a memory left. That's how I see the future going. You might know the answers, but do they have any value? And does everybody else know those answers anyway? You see how that works?
What you mean,
it's the internet of answers. It makes you into a copycat. All you really are is a copycat.
Yeah.
But because you've got the same marks, the same answers, the same views as everybody else, then you feel the same as everybody else. Would you sort of agree that's how it goes?
I would, yeah.
Right, now, item 4, attainment of world supremacy within the next 5 years. Francis, you've been doing some work on this?
Yeah, thank you, Reg. Well, quite frankly, siblings, I think 5 years is optimistic, unless we can smash the Roman Empire within the next 12 months. 12 months, yeah, 12 months. And let's face it, as empires go, this is the big one. So we've got to get up off our asses and stop just talking about it.
Yeah.
I agree. It's action that counts, not words, and we need action now.
Yeah, you're right. We could sit around here all day talking, passing resolutions, making clever speeches. It's not a shift. One Roman soldier.
So let's just stop gabbing on about it. It's completely pointless, and it's getting us nowhere.
Right.
I agree. This is a complete waste of time.
They've arrested Brian!
What?
They've dragged him off! They're going to crucify him!
Right. This calls for immediate discussion.
What?
Immediate.
Right. New motion.
Completely new motion. That there be immediate action.
Once the vote has been taken.
Well, obviously, once the vote's been taken, you can't act on a resolution till you've voted.
Reg, for God's sake, let's go now, please!
Right, in the light of fresh information from Sibling Judith.
Oh, not so fast, Reg.
Reg, for God's sake! It's perfectly simple. All you've got to do is to go out of that door now and try to stop the Romans nailing him up. It's happening, Reg! Something's actually happening, Reg! Can't you understand? Oh!
Yeah. Hello. Have a little ego trip from the feminists.
It's absolute genius, isn't it?
Read that back, would you?
It's absolute genius. Welcome back to the second segment of the Unpenned Show with me, Paul.
Me, Andy.
Honestly, it is genius, isn't it?
It is,
I
yeah.
mean, that is about 40 years old. And if I remember rightly, I've read that they're getting back together for one last film, one last sketch, one last series, one last something. We're going to have to watch it.
We certainly are, yeah.
We're going to have to, whatever that is, we're going to have to see it, because that is the epitome of where we are.
It certainly is, yeah.
We started off the show with, who are we really? We're all doing business in the system of maritime trade. Merchants are all we are, with ships and catches, and we're landing them into port, and it's all what seems to be a crazy story until you look a little bit deeper. And we don't look deeper. This is the problem, that we don't look deeper. We don't walk down the pier and see the depths that are to be seen.
We don't know.
We don't peer down and see the depth, because we can't fathom how this all works.
No.
And on the piers they put the theatres and the fairground rides and the gambling machines.
And the distractions, yeah, all the distractions.
And you can choose to walk down the pier with all the entertainment on, or the one that doesn't have the entertainment on. Because if there's one with entertainment on, there's one without one on.
There's one without, yeah.
And you can always choose. It's always a choice. People say there's an invisible gun to our heads. If it's invisible, it's not there, and it's not a gun. There is a threat of force, and we understand that if we expand that threat of force by telling you how strong it is and how difficult it will be for you to overcome, and then if we say you have to withdraw from the system completely, refuse all paperwork, don't sign anything, how are you going to live? All right? How are you really going to live? And I ask that question quite openly. And the reason I do it is because I know people who tell us that they have, managed to extract themselves from the system. They have managed somehow, miraculously, and I don't know if this is true or not, they have miraculously enabled themselves. They refused all paperwork, refused all connections, and yet they still live, they still breathe, and they still drive, and they still take part in the world. And when you ask them, they're very gurus. When you ask them, okay, you've actually withdrawn from everything, you have no evidence of what would be an income, you do not work, but you somehow live and survive. And when you ask them how, what about those services? What about the doctors, the dentists, the nurses? What about the street lights in the libraries and the bin emptying? How do you survive?
Well, I guess that's up to me, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm just asking. I mean,
no. That's the honest answer.
Well, I guess that's up to me, isn't it? Which means I'm not telling you.
That was the honest answer.
But I'm not telling you.
Yeah.
This life of pretend that you and I have illuminated for some time now. Telling lies to yourself are probably the biggest crime that you ever actually commit upon your own person.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not understanding the words that I'm using and you're saying person, you're not a person, but you have a person. You're right at the beginning. Thanks for listening, but this isn't designed for you. Okay, this is designed for 4, 5, 6 years in, when you see it for what it is. When you understand how and why it works.
Yeah.
Do I agree with the way it works? No, but I understand why it works. Do I know why it works? Yes, I understand why it works, because of who we are.
Yeah.
And how we are. Now, we can spend a long time having a discussion about something we don't know. And the thing we don't know is that, were we always this domesticated? Well, the answer is probably not. History suggests that we were a bit more ruthless, truthless and violent than we are today. And through a process of recruiting soldiers for armies, and then recruiting workers for factories, and then going through the schooling system to provide workers for all sorts of industries, we've been domesticated.
We have, yeah.
And the domestication has been brought about because our living conditions have improved considerably. We live in houses that we didn't know existed 200 years ago. They were for royalty, for famous people. But now we live in those houses.
Yep.
And the houses are very small copies of the big houses that they live in, but copies nevertheless. And we have hot and cold running water and food available that we don't have to hunt and kill before we can eat it. So we've come a long way in very short space of time.
Certainly
from
have.
historical precedent. Yeah, with the soldiers, the Industrial Revolution, and everything that went along with that, with the milling and the mining. We've certainly come a long way as human becomings, which is what we're always going to be.
Yeah.
We're going to become, evolution. It's going to be Homo evolutus or something like that, isn't it? That's where we're going next. Like it or lump it, it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to take part, you won't be forced to take part. You'll be able to stand back and watch everybody else taking part.
Yeah.
It'll be your choice, and I won't criticise whichever one you make. I'm trying to keep up with technology in the way that I can use it for a positive influence that I think might be helpful to a very few people. Fame, fortune, recognition, God forbid, I don't want it. I'm not going to get it either, because we don't speak this way, do we?
No.
We don't speak in a way that we sell something that people want to come back every week and buy. We don't tell you can live out the system for free. We don't tell you don't have to pay your bills. We don't tell you that every disease is curable. Just go on Facebook or YouTube and find the cure. We don't do that. We don't tell you that you just have to keep pestering and people will wake up. That's not true. We don't tell you that money is the root of all evil. The love of money is, but the money is not the root of all evil. It depends what you bloody well do with it.
Do with it, yeah.
Okay? If you're a good person and you're poor, if wealth comes to you, hopefully you'll make good use of it. If you're a bad person and you're poor and you win a lot of money, then you'll probably become a more bad person.
Yeah.
That's life. Okay? Money magnifies what you already are. Okay? That's all money does. It will magnify what you are, but you might think you're a good person, and you might find out at the end of that journey that you're not really.
Yeah.
With power comes responsibility. And that's why I believe this system is challenging us to challenge it.
Yes, it is.
Because if we don't challenge it, it becomes lazy. And it becomes unable to defend itself, or at least it forgets how to defend itself. Maybe we're reaching that point. Maybe in our evolution we are reaching the point of, although it doesn't feel like it, maybe the system now is so fat and bloated and corrupt that they're so busy defending and protecting their own interests.
Yeah. Yeah, covering the loopholes.
That the animal farm point might come, where the power system calls for the force, and the force can't be bothered to protect it. We've got some way to go. But shouting and bawling and criticising what everybody else does is foolish. If people want to watch TV, you ask them what they watched and what did they see. If people want to read stuff that you criticise, let them. You have no right to challenge other people's decisions, but you can take part in asking why they made them.
Yeah.
You see, if people aren't listening to you, it's because you're not leading. You're not showing them something they're interested in. Just because you've opened your mouth and repeating something that you've learned from somebody else doesn't make you smart. It just makes you different. And this is what's happening with the new technology, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is where we're sort of moving along now to a reality that is becoming different to what we know. And the quickening is really coming along now. We can see how generation upon generation are now being changed, because we can look back 2 generations.
Yes, we can look back to
and we can look
2 generations.
But we can look and we can see like 4 and 5-year-olds who have had access to technology at a very early age.
Yeah.
When you see a 3 and 4-year-old go up to the TV and try and grab things, they actually think that they can put their hand in and take them. Don't be fooled about the power of what that technology has done to that 3 or 4-year-old mind. They think they can pick those things out of the television. Now, we never thought that, but they do. And that's just the first example of how reality is being moved house.
Yeah.
Because the old reality that we can touch, taste, feel, smell and hear is dying. And the new reality is becoming more preferable.
Yeah.
What's been built for us is an opportunity to enter a community, a commune, a worldwide, we are all one system.
Yeah.
Which is what the internet is.
Yeah.
when your gurus, we're all one. We're going to unify together and fight. It's in here. This is where the virtual world and the virtual fight is going to take place. All the news, all the successes, all the failures, and everything that you think is reality is going to take place in this net and web here. It'll be supplemented by the TV and the newspapers.
Yeah,
but
backed up by that. Yeah,
but in here is where the fight for our existence is going to take place, because that's how they're designing it.
It certainly is. Yeah.
It's not going to be on the streets. It's not going to be at the council meetings.
No,
it's not going to be challenging public officials and smashing their windows and burning their houses down. They want us to mount our defence in their firewall safety protected system, because they have in here a fire protection system. In other words, we can do what we want in here, but if we ever break out and start throwing petrol bombs at their houses, they'll know before we get there.
They will, yeah.
You see what I mean? They want the very fight to take place here, because they can control it, they can animate it, they can manipulate it,
yeah.
and they can show us our successes and demoralise us with our failures. It's all going to take place on a screen in your house. The revolution will not be televised. It'll be produced for you to enjoy, just like it is now.
Yeah, and it'll be personalised for you,
just like it is now.
Yeah.
As you run out of money, as you run out of ideas, as you run out of everything that you need, you've got a reality that allows you to be more than for free. You can get in here for the smallest of admission fees.
Yeah.
This is the biggest and best circus you've ever been in. And it's the smallest of admission fees, whichever gateway you go through. And in here, you can be successful because you can spend a long time finding the things you need to add to your persona to make you look that way. So when people meet who you are in the virtual world of animated personas, as long as you spend a long time getting that persona just as you want it, then you will have a new self. And it'll be called your new self. And you'll have no problems with it, because you'll take pictures of yourself and call it a selfie.
Yeah.
Because this is the new mirror.
It is.
This is the new mirror. There was a time when just a pond was the mirror, and those that wanted depth would stare into it, and back they would see their own reflection.
Yeah.
And that was the first mirror that ever existed. It's not different in a way that's real. It's different in a way that's now a net. It's still water.
Still water, yeah.
And you're still looking into it.
But you're trapped.
But you're drowning because the tide's coming in.
Yeah.
When today's modern generation say, mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all? It should be Mr. Facebook, Mr. Twitter. Who is the fairest of them all? It's me, isn't it? And if it isn't me, I'll keep working
until it is.
Until it is. This is a self-infatuation in a world of illusion. But it's still a mirror. But it's not reflecting reality. It's reflecting the reality you choose. You choose this reality, and then live a life that's appropriate to who you think you are. Now, this is following two stories on my Facebook. The first one is from January 2013, and it's from the US. It's from the US, but I'm okay with it because, to me, it makes perfect sense. The headline is "How College Students Think They Are More Special Than Ever." We have plenty of people telling us, take back your power.
Yeah, we do.
You are special. We have a never-ending series of information connections that tells us you are more than you ever thought you would be. Sit down, cross-legged, listen carefully, and wait. Because you are more than you ever thought you were. Some people can do that, and it's right. It is possible to make people whole again, put them back together. But for those that claim to be awake, this is a belief system that just by listening, you'll become more than. Now, putting you back together and making you more than is two different things altogether. Putting you back together is a very difficult project, and making you more than is even more difficult because you've got to do all this. If I offered you the following, and this is I think this is funny, this. If I offered you the following sales brochure, what I have is, number one, you have to stop chasing the carrot that we call money. You have to accept it is impossible that you'll ever catch enough. Well, I don't want to do that. Then you can't get past the first gate, because that's your first barrier. If you say, okay, I accept it's a foolish chase, however much I do have, if I don't accept enough at some point, I'll never stop chasing it. So, okay, let's get through gate 1. Gate 2. Gate 2. You have to try and speak the truth, no matter what damage it may do to you or those around you. You've got to start being honest with yourself and the people that you mix with. And it's going to be difficult, but that's how the journey starts, with the truth. People will say, yeah, I can do that. I'm sure I can do that. But they haven't. This is the same conversation where they haven't even got through gate 1 yet.
Yeah.
So point 1 is you've got to stop the money chase. Point 2 is you've got to start telling the truth, regardless of consequence, because you need to learn. The third is that you've got to unlearn every bloody thing you thought was true. You've got to let go of everything you held tightly onto that you thought was real. You've got to accept none of this could exist. It could all be fake. In other words, you've got to allow somebody to throw your world upside down, smash it into a million pieces and say, it's going to take you a while, now put it back together with a picture that you've made yourself. Don't copy anybody else's, you make your own picture. Now this throws you into a very dark world, a very dark and lonely world, an isolated paranoia type world, where you feel as alone as you've ever felt. And you also shout and bawl and attack those that don't understand where you are. In fact, you actually, to some people, look mad. You look as if you are demonically possessed, mad to some extent, and people think you need help. And listen, because there's more. Because if you think that's bad, there comes a point when you think life is all over. You actually think, what is the point? I can't win, I am... That's your challenge. At that point there, you have reached the lowest point. It's a dark, depressing, demonic, satanic-covered world. And you are challenged to get out of it. And you have never felt so alone, so cold, so isolated, and you've never been so scared in your life. And now, you've got to climb out of the very pit, the rabbit hole, the tunnel that you allowed to be created and followed down. Because you thought there was something good for you at the end. And there isn't. There isn't. there's bloody misery. There's a picture of misery, of darkness and misery and demons and evil, and you've got to get out. And at that point, you've got no friends left.
No, you haven't.
That's what this system does. And that's what you're doing if you're not careful. If you're listening to this, be careful. Where are you on that road? Where are you? Have you actually experienced dying and being reborn? Are you a brand new you? Have you gone through the most painful change in your life? Have you changed your friends? Have you changed your attitudes? And have you changed the way you live, the way you feel, the way you think, and the way you project yourself? Because if it doesn't feel like you've died and been born again, then you're lying. You've not gone down to the deepest reaches of the cave. This thing can counterfeit anything.
It can. And it does.
And today's young children, today's young kids,
Yeah.
are being fooled, aren't they?
They are.
They've been fooled into, we just have to believe. We just have to dream it. I just have to be loved and admired by everybody else, and I am somebody.
Yeah, yeah. And they've even twisted it so that they're making it look like you're mentally ill. That's how I'm reading this. They're making it look that you're poorly.
What about that young guy?
It's called, well,
that young guy at the top.
It's called cognitive behavioural therapy. I've underlined that line that they call it, and it's used to help a patient to recognise the reasons for his or her compulsive behaviour, and then learn how to moderate it.
But they make it addictive and then make it an illness.
And make it an illness, yeah. And this poor guy, a British male teenager, he's actually tried to commit suicide. He's called Danny Bowman. He tried to make the perfect selfie.
As if there is such a thing.
I know, and well, it's in the dictionary now. The word selfie was elected Word of the Year 2013 by the Oxford English Poisonery.
Poisonery.
And
you can't say that, can you?
have I just made that up?
Well, yeah.
Oh.
It's the people that keep our words still.
Yes.
By printing them into books.
Books, yeah.
It keeps our diction stationary.
It does, yes.
That's why we print our words on stationery. And it's called diction. Diction stationery is called dictionary. I know.
Yeah.
But
I know.
What that is, that perfect selfie. How on earth can he know he's made a perfect selfie?
How? Yeah.
Because he's been taught that judgment by others,
Putting it out to be judged by others,
and,
yeah.
and because they haven't, in other words, because he hasn't got what he wanted. Look at the disaster.
Yeah, he spent 10 hours a day taking up to 200 selfies, and 19-year-old lost nearly £30, dropped out of school, didn't leave the house for 6 months. In his quest to get the right picture, totally obsessed, and of course fits perfectly with that cognitive behavioural therapy that they've labelled him with.
Now this is an extreme case, we understand that.
Yeah.
But to some extent, this is what's been repeated. Now that's extreme, we know that. I mean, you know, if somebody bought him a copy of Photoshop, he could have done it.
Yeah, well, he tried to commit suicide, didn't he? And his mum, he was saved by his mum. It doesn't say how he was saved by his mum, but she saved him. And it always mums that come to your rescue. And I feel sorry for those people that haven't got a mum.
The thing is that we think we're above average.
Yeah.
Everybody has been programmed to think. Okay? I mean, in our time, we all thought we were better drivers, didn't we?
Yeah.
We all thought we were the best drivers. We all wanted a girl to say to us that we were sexual gods. We wanted that, didn't we? We wanted, what else did we want? I can't remember. I'm thinking, what else did we want that we knew wasn't true, but we wanted it anyway? We haven't talked about this before we went on, but drivers, brave, courageous,
the fashion you
just wanted to be, you wanted to be patted on the head like a dog does.
The best clobber, yeah. But it had to be in fashion. The hairdo, the makeup.
Yeah, but their reality's been changed into. Well, it's been enhanced.
I'm going to say those things have been enhanced. They've been put in HD, haven't they?
High definition compared to what we had.
Yes.
We were the middle children, weren't we?
Yeah.
We were the middle children. Your mum and dad were the initials.
Yes.
They were the starters.
They were
the
the
middle
swinging 60s.
Yeah.
And
they started off. We were the middle children. These are the result. This is the third generation.
Yeah, we thought we thought we're somebody because we had a Top Man card.
Yes, yes.
And a furry dice hung on your mirror.
But the thing about today's modern generation is that they think success is a smaller scale. It's them.
It's them. Yes,
it's them. They know they can't have anything materialistically in a way that we had. Cars, houses, holidays, motorbikes.
Yeah, they've had
that sort of thing.
had to give up on those things.
They've been contracted.
Yes,
made smaller.
Yeah.
Their world's been made smaller and virtual.
And
virtual, yeah. Because if we go far enough down this line, this is the only way. A stat I saw just today: 57% of adults spend more time communicating online than in the real world. So if we follow the path that tells us we're on, and because I've described the virtual world and how I think it's going to suck everybody into it, then everything that we ever want to be will be achievable in here. If I want to be the heavyweight boxing champion of North Yorkshire, there'll be a heavyweight boxing champion league of North Yorkshire, and despite of my age, it won't matter, because as long as I've got the right paraphernalia and I can take part in the bouts, then I'll be able to take part in. I'll be able to virtually box a guy in Leeds, and should I win, I might be elected or selected to be North Yorkshire's representative champion in what is the North of England boxing championships. But it's all virtual. I've sat at home and mastered how to use a video game to win. That's the world that's coming.
Yeah.
And this is why we're talking about the youngsters and how they're being indoctrinated to use the internet. We're talking about narcissists here.
Yeah.
There's no I in team, but there's foreign narcissists. And we're talking about how things have changed in our lifetimes. And we record this to record how we felt and what we thought. Because there's so much to see, isn't there? There's so much to see now. Our journey, the windows have been opened. The windows to the world, our ability to see what we were blind to see, has now been activated. And there's so much for us to share and to record that we actually just take the liberty of recording this at home, put it on YouTube and saying, what do you think?
Yeah.
Most people exit this sort of way of being, or this sort of way of thinking. They exit before they get to where we are now, because they realise that the YouTube stuff and the hugging and kissing and cuddling and loving and unity and community, they realise that, yeah, that sounds great when you're 4 or 5 years old, but that's not how it's going to work. And they exit that and leave it and move on to a more grown-up approach to how do you control 64 million people? How do you get, that's the population of the UK, how do you get 64 million people to sleep without killing each other every night? You know, how much experience do you have of controlling 64 million people?
None.
Well, me neither. You see? And as the internet is still, to some extent, ours, we still can affect it by learning how it works and inputting what we want into it.
Yeah.
But it is a spy grid.
Yeah.
We know it's a spy grid. And the only way it's been allowed to exist is the governments around the world have said, we will host the internet. We'll allow it to be hosted. We'll allow it to exist. But we want to be able to spy on what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's the trade-off. The government didn't create the internet. Now, I know they'll say the American military did. Okay. I know the American military invented it and used it for themselves and then handed it over to a guy whose name I don't know in 1990-ish. And he developed it into a commercial product. And that's the modern internet we have today. But they didn't dictate what we do with it. They are not the creators in a way that we think they create everything. We are the creators. They identify value and buy it.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah. The invention of Facebook, it was the people that went onto it and used it that gave it value. It wasn't the actual.
It was identified very quickly of what it was. But you're right, Zuckerberg. I mean, Zuckerberg said, you're a bunch of dumb effers if you use it and give all this stuff away.
Yeah.
He said that openly. Now, whether Zuckerberg was... I've seen the film about, how did social networking start? Was it true? Well, it doesn't matter whether it's true. It doesn't matter.
The matter
what
is
happened
here,
was
and it's
that
working perfectly.
They said, do you want it? And we said yes. So its origins don't matter.
No.
You see what I mean? There's lots of little companies been inventing things. SoundCloud is doing really well. Let's not assume that they control everything. Let's remember that this world it's a game of chaos. And it's organisation through chaos. In other words, they let us create the chaos, and they identify things of value and let us muddle around, working it out for ourselves. They don't tell us what we need to know.
No.
But the internet makes it's not as hidden as it used to be.
No.
The game of hide and seek is a little bit more accessible, isn't it?
I remember a game that we had at school that we called it clackers. I don't know anybody else, but it was 2 balls on a string.
Yeah, we did.
And you had to swing them up and down like that, and you had to get them crack at the top and crack at the bottom and bounce back. And the thing was that you could break your wrist with it.
You could break your bloody knuckles.
And break your knuckles. But people did it anyway.
Yeah.
Because they could see if they could do it. And I'm linking that to Facebook, and it could cause you harm. Now, this is what they've said about this. This is written here. It says, public health officials in the UK announced that addiction to social media such as Facebook and Twitter is an illness. And more than 100 patients sought treatment every year.
But are they wrong? Are they wrong? Are they wrong?
No, but...
Today's young people spend 7.5 hours connected to social media.
Yeah.
A day.
Mm-hmm. Well,
7.5 hours a day.
Danny Bowman there, 10 hours a day. It's...
on one hand, to give you it, and on the other hand, to criticise you for using
you with it. Yeah.
But can we not see a little bit about how the control system works? Now, I know that the word we call they exists, and I don't know who sits at the top. Visually, we know it's the richest woman in the world, the Queen. But who she's in company with, subject to argument, so not worth going there. But when we look at how the world works and understand how it just repeats, okay, there's more power, more corruption, more intelligence, more sophistication, more deception, but still it works the same way. The human drivers, what we try to achieve and how we try to achieve it, are still the same basic methods. They're just cleverer as we go up the scale.
Yeah.
And we're taught that all wars are not only funded, but controlled by the very system. And that makes perfect sense, because that's what I would do. Regardless of who you think's in control, it's the people who've got the power to create money out of fresh air.
Yeah.
That's who's really in control. Because no matter how much it takes, they can buy whatever it is they need. So the people who print the money out of nothing have always been in control and will always be in control.
Yeah.
No matter what challenges are made to them, they will always be able to engineer and pay for their position to be maintained. And we, as the lower end, will have to pay the price for that.
And you've mentioned a word there, pay, and they know they have to pay for their privilege. They have to. You have to give something to get something back, and I understand that. But this system we've got here that we're on, it's given us the illusion that we can have it for free. That's the problem, and they recognise
that's what
this.
the internet is. It's a place for people who've got no money to build a persona and acquire things
exactly
for nothing.
It says
that's why we don't like the internet when we have to pay for it, because we were right from the start. Everything was free.
Everything was free, and it says the big problem with the rise of digital narcissism is that it puts enormous pressure on people to achieve unfeasible goals.
That's it. That's what I mean. The word believe doesn't mean you can do it.
No,
it's a start.
But it says before it finishes the sentence with without making them hungrier.
Well, you know why that is, because the old hunter-gatherer thing is being taken away from us.
Yes.
Our very instinct to actually feed ourselves makes us down to bottle-fed.
Yeah.
We become bottle-fed babies. Well, bottle-fed babies can't read, can't write, can't talk, and can't reason. Yeah? They'll go as low as we'll let them.
Yeah.
we're in the Matrix. The Matrix is the womb or the uterus, and we're to be remade. We're being born. The new man is being born. Okay, Homo evolutus is coming. The new generation, the gods are making us in their image.
It is, and I've just went on YouTube the other day and I checked out Sam Williams, Sam Williamism it is, and he did a little about 9-minute video on the new pound coin, which looks like a threepenny bit.
Yep.
And they're naming it after Isis.
Yep.
And Isis was the mother to Horus.
It was.
And she breastfed Horus. And that comes back to the bottle feeding. How you see how it once you start joining the dots and fitting them all in, and looking at it for what it is, it just fits perfectly in with everything, doesn't it? And they've got a perfect. You've got to ask yourself, they do have a perfect right to do this. If we're not going to get up and challenge them, then they're going to do exactly what they want.
We're living through probably the most exciting time in history, and certainly modern day history.
Yeah.
And by exciting, I mean that we're not having to fight for survival like we used to. We're
not
not having to worry about being raped and pillaged and killed in our beds.
No, but
the changes between what we call the 20th century and the end of the 21st century. I believe that this war on humanity started in earnest, as history will record it, the 11th of September 2001. And I believe that by the 11th of September 2101, the changes the world we live in will be unrecognisable.
Yeah.
Completely unrecognisable.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, we'll be living under domes. If I had to guess, we'll be breathing filtered air. If I had to guess, we'll only have access to chemical food. And if I had to guess, there will be a very few of us which will be used only for scientific research. And we will be maintained for scientific research. The others will be bred for purposes of breeding and prostitution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is underway. It's definitely underway. They're picking off the weakest, aren't they?
They always do.
They're picking off Syria.
But that's all bullies could do.
Picking off the Crimea and the Ukraine.
Yeah, but the Ukraine have started shooting their own people. You know, we would invade Syria if they got up to that.
Yeah, I know. And they picked on Greece, an economy there that's got. I mean, it exists on tourism and olive oil.
But all historical tracks have got to start where they've been before.
Yeah, the bully.
Egypt and
Greece.
Greece and Egypt, they always. Everything starts there. And it takes a little while. The new methods, the new thinking.
Yeah.
The empire is retraced its own steps.
As we coming back to what we started off with, the satire, Greek satire.
To the beginning.
Back to the beginning.
It always goes back to the beginning.
It does, yeah.
They have to maintain the history and the template of how it's worked. So those that read it after they've gone, okay, all they've done is rejig, rehash, improve, and change what they've done before. So while we're looking for a guy in a beige jacket with a swastika and a funny little tash and a washing up bowl haircut, while we're looking for him, they're busy creating the next version of what he did.
They are, yeah. And claiming they're doing it in God's name. And Cameron's come out and said that, hasn't he? He believes he's doing God's work. I think Blair said the same as well, didn't he?
Also, Goldman Sachs, Jamie Dimon from Goldman Sachs said the same thing. It just shows that they are all in it together.
They are, yeah.
For those that think that we're trying to spread doom and gloom, you've not been listening properly. For those that think we can fix the world, good on you. But you can't do it the way you're thinking. You can't do it by listening to the internet. Well, you've got to consider what hasn't worked, and then you might consider everything I'm doing hasn't worked, and then you have to ask yourself, so why am I still doing it, and why am I still supporting those that still do it? If you haven't got any money, you can't make the difference that you think you can. If you're not paying your bills, your life will be in trouble soon. If you think you can get out of this system, find me somebody who is, and go and live with them. All right, go see how they're getting on. Find me somebody who's really doing it, and don't shout and bawl at me because I'd say it can't be done. All right, when I say it can't be done, prove me wrong. Don't shout me down. Find me somebody who's doing it, and I'll have them on the radio. I'll jump in my car and go and meet them. But find me someone who's doing it before you argue with me that you can do it. Because if you aren't doing it, you're not part of the conversation.
No.
If you want to try and cock me up with legal stuff, go right ahead. It won't matter. Because I'll know, while you're attacking you and I, while you feel quite entitled to criticise and attack you and I, I'll know that you haven't got the hang of this at all. Because you've not identified your enemy.
No.
Your enemy is the one that makes your life worse.
Yeah.
The enemy is the one that tells lies to you. The enemy that says we come in peace and then steals off your children. If you don't agree with what we've said, then that's fine. I never need you to. And the next show we do might be next week, or it might be the week after, it might be whenever. And it might say what we've said tonight, and it might be slightly different. Because what we're actually really recording here is our journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the one thing that I do know, and the one thing that I have understood, is that people come and people go. And the reason they come is because it's something they find interesting. And the reason they go is because they give up.
Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan, "Press on," has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race. Calvin Coolidge, 1933.
And these are things we need to remember. Persistence. Just persist.
Yeah.
At this moment in time, if I had to sum up in a sentence where you and I are, I would say I feel quite privileged to have been able to learn what it is that the world had to offer.
Yeah.
I feel frustrated that I can't share it very well. But we try.
Yeah.
We laugh at the world and we cry for the people. We don't want more for ourselves, but we don't want less. And we don't want nothing we don't deserve. Because that's what living's about.
It is, yeah.
I don't mind the challenge. I don't mind the difficulty of it all. I just want it to be mine. And if I achieve it, I get to keep it.
Yeah.
It's the eternal battle. It's the eternal battle that religion has used against us forever. We're going to end. I'm going to end this with almost a 12-minute clip. I'm going to actually record on the end of this, and it's there for those that might not have heard it before. It's called the Roach Motel. I don't think you've heard it, have you?
No, I don't think I have. No.
It's one of those things that you maybe once isn't enough to listen to it. It sounds deep. It sounds dark. It sounds like the end of the world. But only if you want it to be. Otherwise, it should be inspiring and challenging. From another Tuesday, my friend, it's good night from me.
And good night from me.
Like the North Dakota oil debacle. Part of your mind or someone's mind says that every one of these creatures should be rounded up and put on trial, followed by the quick and speedy execution of capital punishment or life in prison without hope of parole. That includes the oilmen performing it, the politicians permitting it, the oversight and enforcement agencies ignoring it, those explaining it, and those only concerned with milking the greatest rent from their railroad flat apartments, greasy spoons, and whatever side of the road cash hijacking machines they've set up to wring some temporary vermin profit from it can be left to the fate of vermin once the plunder leaves town and all that remains are wide wastes where nothing grows and deep bits of wet, stinking, death-assured, hot-weather swimming pools for their stunted, hillbilly, heroin-addicted children. Corollary incidentals always appear in tandem with these things, and even members of the socio-political retard army can see the connection. But what's the fun or profit in that? Isn't it just better to let this shit go on and get all righteous and weepy about the back end, drowning in a rain of hypocritical tears as you bemoan the loss of so many things caused by global hand warmers at football games? The people doing these things are the spiritual offspring of serial killers and mass murdering psychopaths. They know what they're doing and they know what happens, but it just doesn't matter, and maybe at this point it doesn't. Most of the population is in bed with it on some level. Some are just sleeping in better accommodations. Some of them have even had their own idea of environmental awareness and a love of nature, and some of them are into consciousness-improving retreats where they can take a few minutes to rationalize it all and come to peace with it. Of course, whether it comes to peace about it with them is another story. Once the sleepwalking, wide-load, expando-pants shit-for-brains consumer zombies can really, absolutely no longer put food on their families, and the ones who haven't yet been matriculated to another world by their murderous and insane progeny, or the temporary berserker status of the head of the household, or some relative come back from foreign killing fields who can't live with themselves or you anymore. Once it finally dawns on them, and they have to go live in their car and they can't afford the gas to run the heater in their car when winter comes in order to take a nice carbon monoxide nap prior to a morning that never arrives, when they meant, with all good intentions, to head down to the Slurpee factory to see if they were taking on part-time day laborers. It's possible. It's possible that enough of them will get together and storm their houses of government and drag the toads, lampreys, and pigs from their panelled offices and dispense the justice they should have gotten a long time before. But there's no telling how it will all sort out. It won't sort out well in most places. That's pretty much a given. Those who are getting just what they deserve from the government they deserve will keep right on nodding their heads like plastic bobbing flamingos on highball glasses, while whatever infernal alien in chief that runs their slice of idiocracy drones on and on about recovery and a return to the good life they never had to begin with. All the now human-sized ticks operating as bureaucratic functionaries and arseholes with guns and clipboards will be going around and knocking on doors, exercising edicts and informing the residents that one more thing they took for granted and once considered a right has now become illegal. Not only has it become illegal, but the law will clearly state that they should have known what they didn't know, and at least one member of the household is now to be dragged out onto the front lawn and impaled on a flaming spike as a warning to their neighbors. It's not like they don't lack the courage and conviction at some level, because just as soon as whatever Zaya Ogre entity who runs the joint tells their leaders that some country, somewhere, has to be turned into a smouldering open-air graveyard, they will and do gladly deliver their children to the task. Heck, if they're still in any kind of shape, given they have no job anyway, they'll go too. Meanwhile, the wife can run some kind of hot sheet split-level home to cover whatever taxes and penalties might ensure, for whatever reason, the thieves in power create to acquire it. This probably sounds like satire or sarcasm to some, and terrorism to others, but it's all true. It might look and play out a little differently, but the results will be the same, and something very like all of it is going on all over the place right now. Or maybe you can't see that. That is altogether possible. You won't be hearing about it where you get your news, and you won't be reading about it here. I'm sure the heinous empires of Rockefeller and Rothschild, along with all those other names so well known to some of us, would have long ago met their well-deserved fates at the hands of the mob, possibly even the hands of a creative, patient, and fiendishly ingenious mob, except for the magic powers they wield that keep their lizard-skin bodies intact. It doesn't take a whole lot of inquiry and imagination to figure out they have the protection of certain entities, brought forth by bloody rites and rituals of human sacrifice, small children preferred, to maintain their diabolical activities. Most of this is low-end shit, but we live in a low-end yuga, so that all makes sense. Every member of the Walking Wounded probably knows by now that Wall Street and the city are a cancer as great as anything Fukushima might deliver, and that they run the governments, and that whatever the governments have been doing to them comes at the order of these demon cabals. It would never have gotten this far if so many people hadn't wanted to become lawyers in their employ, hired guns for their protection, doctors in their service of disease, scientists in the service of plague, eugenics and euthanasia, office workers who produce and ferry all manner of official paper for the promise of a particular paper, confinement specialists who would rather be out than in, even though their confinement is just defined in another way. It wouldn't have gotten this far if most of the entertainers, artists, writers, musicians, and self-deluded victims of bad inspiration hadn't decided the best career move was to sell out the promise of everything that they might have been and done for a corporate tattoo on their ass, which they can display to the world during their moments of buggery and bacchanalia in the ultimate public performance art that all of this leads to. There's nothing like state and culturally sanctioned masturbation that you can do anywhere at any time, because, baby, you have that right, and you don't have to worry about drawing a crowd. They will be there and just as turned on as you are. Thousands of cell phone cameras will be clicking or videotaping, and Zyotube will be waiting, just anticipating. Well, you won't have to worry about all the things you never ever will possess, because possession is assured. This is the time of the habitation of demons, and everyone gets to be a timeshare or a permanent resident, although the former doesn't usually exist unless you get real fucking lucky. Step right up. Yeah, everybody's a winner. Don't ask why the rings don't go over the bottles or the ball doesn't go into the net. They wouldn't call it a trick if you could see what was happening. What do you know? Isn't that Lady Gaga on the carnival speakers? They've all come to see the freaks. Well, no worries there. Freaks you will have, especially when night falls. She doesn't call them little monsters for nothing, nor will little be the case. Sure, satire, sarcasm, or terrorism as you prefer, it all becomes something different anyway when you check into the Roach Motel at the end of the universe, and you don't have to go any real distance. There's one real close by. It's a franchise, and that's just what they call it. Something like putting the glimmer of romance on your already bought and sold ass. They don't really need to do that. You already gave it up without romance ever entering into the equation. But while there's still time for you to wake up and get pissed off, and still time for you to do something about it, certain forms of crowd control will be employed, even if only inside your head. You should know, though, that that's not all you're going to get. You do have to remember, they don't do it just for profit. They do it for the entertainment, too. All you need to think about is what you imagine they need, want, and require from you in that regard. We'll take a look at the way you came and what happened around you on the way, even if it didn't happen to you yet, even if it didn't get around to you yet. Read a little history about other times like these, and keep in mind that this is the time when they really let all those potentials and appetites loose. You won't have to think too hard about what that means. You won't have to worry too much about waking up or sleeping through it either. There's not nearly as much fun in it for them, unless they can wake you up to be part of the experience. If that is all the awakening you prove,